baby doll!
If you're so impatient, just go ahead without me.
It was a film that sizzled with raw sexuality.
I think Time magazine said this is probably the most pornographic movie ever made.
A film considered so scandalous it was condemned by the Legion of Decency, who said it was morally corrupt.
None of us found the script shocking. None of us thought what we were doing was anything out of the ordinary as far as things that would be objectionable. And we were all terribly hurt.
A film that incited a nationwide boycott that forced it from the screens.
I was surprised it was taken off. I really was. I've never heard of a picture being taken off.
A film so controversial, it even spilled over into the personal lives of those who made it.
I got a lot of backlash, and people were yelling at me on the street, and it was not a good time. It was not a good time, and for years I tried to live down the title Baby Doll, and I never have.
Released just before Christmas 1956, Warner Brothers' provocative Baby Doll heated up screens across the country with its no-holds-barred tale of desire, lust, and revenge set amidst the poverty of the Deep South. Only a few short years before, a film like Baby Doll would have no chance of being released at all. But in the aftermath of World War II, American audiences had grown more sophisticated and were looking to the movies to investigate adult themes. And the man who helped bring that to the fore was Tennessee Williams.
One of the most important forces in the undermining of censorship in the post-war period is, of course, playwright Tennessee Williams. The whole sexual mores was in transition. Everything was in transition in America. And here was a playwright, as artists do, they represent this, what is happening in the culture. For Tennessee, sex was a celebration of life. And he was very much against this whole puritanical take on, sensuality and sexuality.
It was the director, Elia Kazan, who offered Williams the chance to write his first screenplay, which ultimately became Baby Doll.
The whole concept of Baby Doll was Tennessee Williams. He had the most marvelous imagination. He loved the idea that here was a girl who wasn't 19 yet, who was going to have to consummate her marriage when she turned 19. There was no furniture in the house. Therefore, she had to sleep in her baby's crib.
In order to ensure that Baby Doll had the proper authenticity, Kazan decided to make the film on location in the Deep South. His choice was a small town in Mississippi called Benoit, where at first the film crew got a wary welcome.
I'll admit that us old-timers were a bit standoffish. We didn't know you all that well at first.
There had just been a whole case about a kid named Emmett Till who had whistled at a girl and they lynched him. And that was all that was down there. It was very tense at that time.
There was still segregation, and I think they were very much afraid that we were going to do a film about segregation, that we were going to somehow present them as rednecks, as uneducated, that we were going to make fun of them, in other words.
And Williams came, who's a Southerner, and Kazan said, we guarantee that we will not poke fun at these people because this is a different idea. And so they believed him and they trusted him. And we made a movie that was not funny about the South, but was Tennessee's take on what happens in a Southern community.
Once shooting began, everyone in the cast knew that Baby Doll was going to be no ordinary movie.
The opening of it, I loved doing. That's peeking through the hole and seeing her in the bed. And then, wouldn't you know it, he sent the dog in. I didn't know the dog was going to come in. Now the dog is giving me trouble. So that scene, now I have to, don't ever act with dogs and children. Well, here's the dog now. I got to push the dog away and play the scene. So I had fun. That opening scene, it told me this is going to be that kind of picture. Here we go.
Throughout the making of the film, Kazan encouraged his actors to do whatever came to mind, even if it wasn't in the script.
My one contribution was I was sitting in the car, the open convertible, waiting for Archie Lee. And Kazan said, this is a dead scene. He said, you're just sitting there and I have to take some time for Archie Lee to come back. And he said, I don't know, what can we do? And I said, well, my father was a traveling salesman, and one of the rewards for sitting in the car and waiting for him was the fact that he'd always bring me an ice cream cone. And Kazan went, yes! wonderful. Then, of course, it really turned into a scene.
Why didn't you bring me a double dare? How long we just gonna sit here?
I gotta wait for my prescription.
I'm bored.
Now, what the Sam Hill so funny?
It was crazy, but it all had the same flavor. We were all in the same vein, so it didn't matter. And I enjoyed it immensely, and I think all the other actors did too.
From beginning to end, Baby Doll was infused with highly charged sexual energy and imagery. For many who had never seen anything quite like it on screen before, the raw sexuality proved too much.
This is all about arousal. I mean, 25 minutes of the film is about arousal. He's getting turned on, she's getting turned on, and this representation of being turned on, of sexual arousal, is something new in films at this particular time.
On the swing scene, which was the very sensual scene, his hands were down below the frame, so they made up that he was actually touching me. The truth of the matter was that we were freezing to death, and it was cold in Mississippi then, and we had heaters all around us. And so Kazan was shooting us up close and had the heaters down below. And we were chewing ice so that our breath wouldn't show, because it was supposed to be summer.
And when he'd say action, we'd spit the ice cube out. And a lot of the critics would say, where were his hands when he reached down? My hands were down there heating, you know, and trying to keep warm.
That's what was going on. That was the heat, the real heat of the scene.
Everything about Baby Doll was ambiguous. But the greatest ambiguity of all was whether or not Vaccaro had actually seduced Baby Doll.
I find you different this evening in some way. Grown up suddenly.
I feel cool and rested for the first time in my life.
Kazan asked me, and he said, do you think you went to bed together? And I hadn't even thought about that. All I wanted was for her to sign the paper that her husband burned down the cotton gin. So I said, no, I wouldn't go to bed with her. He said, why? I said, he's Sicilian. I would lead her to the point where she wanted it very much, and then I would say, sometime later.
Come on up and sing me to sleep.
My daddy would turn over at his grave.
I didn't feel that way. I felt that the transition happened because they did have an affair.
Everyone was proud of their achievements, but they had no idea they were headed for a maelstrom of controversy that began with the film's outrageously sensual advertising campaign.
We had no idea at all during the making of the film that it would be a controversial film, none whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, Kazan was hoping for a sleeper. It was a very small budget picture done, you know, in the South, away from all the Hollywood glamour and glitz. How are we going to get people to come in and see it? It was finally one of the publicity men who said, you can't have a better shot than that crib shot with her lying there sucking her thumb, wearing rompers in a baby's crib, and that was what they used as the advertising. But we had gotten so close to it that we'd forgotten how bizarre that was.
I spent more time in that crib than she did. I thought, why did they put me up there, lying in that crib?
Please also remember, it was indeed the billboard, but please remember the time of year this was. This was one of the most important Christian seasons, Christmas. Nativity scenes all over, and you got Warner Brothers with this nymphette in a crib. I mean, come on, consider this.
It's interesting because the pre-publicity that we got was how funny the film was, how interesting it was, what a wonderful offbeat movie.
Cardinal Spellman, the Cardinal of New York City, he ascended the pulpit, St. Patrick's Cathedral on Fifth Avenue on December 16th, 1956, and he says that any Catholic who sees Baby Doll would commit a sin.
This is not a moral picture. No Catholic should buy a ticket to go see this picture.
And I thought, I didn't know I'm playing in a pornographic movie. I'm playing in a rather religious movie about revenge. That was my connection with it. But when I saw Cardinal Spellman in New York said, any good Catholic is in danger of being excommunicated. And I thought, oh my God, I could be excommunicated. Now, I'm Jewish, so I didn't know. But I thought, how do you get excommunicated? What the hell does that mean?
It was a Sunday morning in New York. I was half asleep. The telephone rang. This man's voice said, "This is so-and-so from United Press. Your film has just been banned by the Catholic Legion of Decency, and Cardinal Spellman has just denounced it from the pulpit of St. Patrick's Cathedral. What do you have to say?"
The firestorm of criticism from Spellman, the Legion of Decency, and a number of other religious organizations frightened many exhibitors and caused them to cancel Baby Doll's bookings.
And within a week or two, maybe a little longer, Jack Warner pulled the picture.
I remember how hurt Tennessee Williams was, the fact that the Catholic Legion of Decency banned the film. He just couldn't believe it. As a matter of fact, none of us really quite knew why. The biggest thing that I regret was that they lost track of the fact that it was a very funny picture. It's so funny. It's a great comedy, it really is.
Not everyone found Baby Doll to be objectionable. A number of critics and theatergoers alike found it to be something of a minor masterpiece, and Baby Doll was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including Carroll Baker as Best Actress.
Everything about Baby Doll and what happened afterwards just amazed me. So yes, I mean, that was just one more thing, being nominated for an Academy Award, and in the same year as Ingrid Bergman, as Anna Magnani. I mean, please. It was just, the whole thing was overwhelming. It took me years to sort of feel like a normal person again after having played Baby Doll and been so identified with her.
I think it's a great piece of art. Kazan's done some great work because his stories always are so well put together. He knows what he's doing, and he lets the actors do it.
I loved Tennessee. I loved working with him. I loved making that movie, Baby Doll. And it's my favorite movie.
Being anything but Tennessee Williams, you know, you jump at. I would jump at even today if he were alive.
It was a very funny, wonderful, unique film that I am so proud I did. And of course, now at my age, if somebody calls me Baby Doll, I don't mind.
Well, let's go in now. We got nothing to do but wait for tomorrow and see if we're remembered or forgotten.